But first, yesterday, notorious killer Guy Turcotte of Montreal was granted his release after 4 years of psychiatric care. Just 4 years. He had stabbed his 2 young children to death, but was found not criminally responsible because of a mental disorder. His wife says she fears for her safety when he becomes a free man. Heritage Minister James Moore was designated as the government's cabinet spokesman on this controversial release. What's your reaction to this case? It sounds pretty horrific.
It's beyond horrific. I mean, this is sort of the worst of the worst. I mean, people who take children's lives. Now, I know that he's been found criminally not responsible, but I think the instinctive reaction to the public is what it's typically is from Canadians who have a very finely tuned sense of fairness and justice. That somebody who, look, a children's life was taken, stabbed 46 times. It was admitted to by Mr. Turcotte, and now he's released into the public. So the public says there's something wrong in the system here. And what's equally, I think, maddening for the public is that not only is he now available for release and could be released, but worse than that is that his ex-wife and the victim's family and community safety has been given, frankly, short shift by the system, and that needs to change. So our government, we've announced that we're going to be coming back, when we come back for the winter sitting in January, we're going to be coming back and tabling legislation to make sure that victims and community safety are at the heart of the justice system, because currently they're not. There's very little, if any, regard whatsoever given to victims and the community safety when circumstances like this arise. Now, it's often that, high-profile extreme cases lead to bad law, but what's equally often true is that high-profile cases that are given a lot of scrutiny expose failures in the justice system. And that's what's happened with this case and other cases in Canada like Alan Schoenborn.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, and I was talking to you before we went on the air. I said, why are you, of all the ministers, where's Vic Taves and others, and Rob Nicholson, why is that? You have a case and you're riding like this?
I do. There's a guy named Alan Schoenborn he killed his 3 kids. He murdered them and left the bodies there for his wife to find in one of the most horrific cases that you can imagine. I mean, it's as bad as you can imagine. And he was found to be not criminally responsible for the behavior. And so the public policy question is, in that circumstance, when a crime has happened, when lives have been taken, and the person is not criminally responsible because of their status of their mental faculties, what do you do with that individual? Well, if they don't belong in jail in the justice system, what do you do? Well, they belong in a hospital. Okay, so they go into the hospital. Well, at a certain point, it might be deemed that this person is not a threat to society and perhaps should be released back into general population at some point or have some escorted day passes. Well, at that moment, community safety and the victim have to be engaged in the process, and right now they're not, to the point where community safety is not considered at all by the provincial panels involved in this, and the victims themselves are dragged through a pretty odious and consistent process where they have to relive the trauma of these circumstances again and again. It's what's happened to Mr. Turcotte's wife, it's what's happening in British Columbia with Alan Schoenborn and his ex-wife Darcy Clark, and it's wrong and it needs to stop, and we're going to put forward legislation that will help fix this.
I know the panel commissioner was quoted as saying that he still poses a risk, but that risk can be controlled if he's supervised. It's essential that his team be on hand if his state deteriorates. Of course, there's 2 glaring things in there. If he can still pose a risk, and if he doesn't, so he deteriorates suddenly, someone's got to be there to catch him. If he's a free man, both of those are missing.
And equally wrong is, as I said, is that the victim is not considered in this process whatsoever. And also, look, we need to have a justice system that makes sense, that is measured, that is balanced between medical science, the best advice that we have through the sweep of Canadian history when we know a lot about how to best manage our justice system. But also, there's an element here of justice and injustice that needs to be addressed and met with effectively by our system. And it's frankly wrong. It's just wrong that someone who stabbed his child 46 times could be available to go back into the public 18 months after the fact. And that the victim has no guarantees from the system for her safety, for her family's safety, for community safety. It's as black and white a case of right and wrong that needs to be fixed, and it's our job as a government to help fix it.
Just to play devil's advocate, it's possible that his mental disorder, whatever that was, can be cured or seem to be cured in that time frame. Is your concern that something more needs to be done to keep him off the street, or that his wife and her family, her new family, need to be better protected?
Both and a third. Both, yes, the victim. Second, yes, the fact that he may or may not be cured. But third as well is that this is also an evolving part of medical science, right? I mean, it has not been long that our society and governments have taken seriously our investments and our approach to mental health and what mental health means for those who are involved in criminal activity, and how to best address that in the justice system, in our health system, and how, therefore, that leads to the proper incorporation of these people into our society who have committed crimes. So in all that taken in together means that we need to have a balanced system, and the imbalance that we have right now clearly is against the victim, and that's inadequate. And that's why you're seeing such an overwhelming public outpour of support for Mr. Turcotte's wife, for Darcy Clark in British Columbia, when Alan Shornborn is victimizing her again and again by requesting to have to be released back every year, and we need to fix that, and the public knows it, and we're going to act.
Close that loophole. All right. Thanks very much, James Moore. Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Don.